Hello and welcome to another One Up Pod review. This is Chip and Andy.
What up, fuckers?
And we're here to talk about Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. First things first, this will be a spoiler-free review. So if you haven't played Guardians of the Galaxy but would like to one day, we won't be revealing anything from the story or the Easter eggs or, anything else that should be kept as a nice surprise upon your first playthrough. Now, Andy, as our resident historian and hater of the Avengers game, I believe to start with, you wanted to get into some history on Square's superhero games?
Yeah, well, I mainly wanted to just talk about how bad Avengers was.
I thought that might be the case.
I've got an axe to grind. It's just, playing this game, it just really emphasised how much Avengers got wrong. Like, what that game got wrong was that it lost sight of the humanity of the Marvel Universe. Like, one of the best things about Marvel has always been it's been about imperfect people with extraordinary abilities, always try to do their best. Like, even the heroes and the villains, they're all layered and flawed and interesting. But Marvel's Avengers, because it was so fixated on this live service, just grind thing. There was no room for story. They treated these like heroes like just action figures. There's just no nuance to them. They're all just props. Like for a weak as piss of a well-hydrated person like combat system. It's just so degraded. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's just. It just turned into noise, and like not the fun kind of noise that gets your attention like a firework. It's more like someone chewing a Haribo in your ear while you try to watch There Will Be Blood at the cinema.
Oh no,
that's something that happened to me. I'm still cut up about it.
I think that's a podcast for another time, but no.
The Avengers was just a very bad experience, and going into Guardians of the Galaxy, I had some concerns about what Square Enix would do here, because the developers, Eidos-Montréal, they did Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Deus Ex Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, so I knew I could trust them, that they can do really strong gameplay. The Deus Ex sequels have like really deep and involved gameplay systems. Shadow of the Tomb Raider shows that they can handle like interesting flawed characters. My main concern was whether Square Enix would like let them do that, and thankfully they did.
I was going to say, like, if people listening don't follow us on Twitter, they might not know what we thought of Guardians of the Galaxy, because we've both been pretty consistent, I think, in tweeting our thoughts about the game.
Yeah. And
the way you've kind of set that up is kind of like a 50-50, like, was it going to be more of an Avengers, or was it going to be actually something that's decent and not a big pile of horseshit? So I think we can reveal that we both kind of loved the game.
Yes, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, 100%. I only bought the game because you not bullied me into it, that's a bit harsh, but you sort of, like when in a cartoon when someone puts a pie on a windowsill and then the smell like wafts and entices someone in. That was you with this game.
Very much so.
I think you had it a day or two before me, and just in our little group chat that we have, you're like, it's so good, I love it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, Andy, I'm going to have to buy it now, aren't I? Obviously. It's your fault that I did buy it, but I'm glad you did bully me into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried bullying you into getting Deathloop, but I felt like you were more inclined to get this game. I didn't have to push as hard.
Yeah.
I just had to I had to just confirm your suspicions that it was going to be really good. Because like we all loved the look of it when it was announced at E3, so we were all excited. We were just hoping they would actually deliver, and I think they all exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, same. Yeah, absolutely. I think the concerns you raised at the start of the review are some that I had as well, and along with a couple of others that we'll get into maybe when we talk about, I think, some of the gameplay aspects of it a bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it completely blew me away. I had so much fun with this game. We've both finished it, right? In less than a week?
Yes, I finished it this morning.
Yes, and I finished it late last night. Because I had a little trouble with a couple of games recently, because as you know, I've been playing Assassin's Creed for about 6,000 years. And Control, which hasn't really, I've kind of fallen out with it quite a bit. Like I liked it at the start and not so keen on it now. So it was just so lovely having a game that was just so fun, and a game that I just wanted to come and play whenever I had any free time. And I was just completely sucked in, and completely loved it.
Yeah, I was like you. I any free time I had, I was like spending a lot of it with this game. I think the main pull of this game really was the way they handled the characters.
Yes,
they absolutely got these characters right. Like anyone who's, even if you're just familiar with them from the movies, you're gonna recognize these characters, and they've handled them so perfectly. I was concerned because Marvel's Avengers, like I said, the characters are almost unrecognizable. They're just kind of basic idea of those characters. Something like if your mum was describing Captain America to you, that's what it'd come across like. But this,
yeah, and then she's trying to make him out of cardboard.
yeah, very much. But these were like really nuanced, interesting, like layered characters. Like the performances, like they were all fantastic, and the facial animations I was really impressed with.
Yeah, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're really, really, like there's a lot of nuance going on. I say nuance a lot, but for a Guardians of the Galaxy game, you might not expect the word nuance to come up a lot, but it really was there. There's a lot of authenticity to the way the characters interact with each other. It was like, it's just a lot, because there's a lot of like heavy emotions in the story. We won't go into any spoilers like we said, but those, like the voice actors and the facial animations, they got to work together. No one was burdened with all the work. Like they both kind of had an even load, which was really nice. It like helps characters like say things without saying things, which isn't always, not a lot of games can really get away with that. Things like The Last of Us Part 2 could, like, you've got to have a real high caliber of like performance and like tech marrying together to get something this good.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being really impressed because I think it's Quill during a moment like pushes his tongue into his cheek to like convey a certain like awkwardness or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just such a small thing, but it looked so good. Like the tongue didn't clip through his cheek or anything like that. Like his cheeks look like actual flesh. And I just remember being really impressed and thinking, you know, a lot of time with video games with characters, like the graphics might look good, but a lot of the characters look a bit dead behind the eyes. You know, it's like they blink and their eyes move, but there's nothing there. And this is one of the first games I've played, I think, where I just like, this looks like animation. You know, it's like that nice sort of middle ground between real life and like a really good animation of a film. And I think that's one of the things that impressed me most, just like straight away, was just looking at it and going, I believe all these characters and the emotions they're having purely through their visuals, like their facials.
Yeah, I think my favourite character was Jason Cavalier's Drax. Like, I always liked Drax, but he kind of gets short-served in the movies a little bit. He's mostly a funny guy. I felt like he got a lot of really emotionally affecting moments in the game, and the voice acting was perfect. But it was the facial animations as well, really like selling this buried conflict in the character. Like that Drax had me in tears sometimes in the game. It was like really, like either with laughter or like sadness. It was such a great character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think one of the things they do with the characters as well is one of the things that the MCU does so well is it just nails those little character moments. Like obviously they have their big story beats with the villains and saving the world and all that sort of thing, but most of the Marvel films always have these little moments that aren't about like, you know, the overarching story that they just absolutely nail. And I felt like the Guardians game did that. And Spider-Man as well on the PlayStation, which we've covered before in episode 3, I want to say.
Yes, it was 3.
And I think both those games kind of fit quite nicely between the MCU and the comics. Like they're a really nice like middle ground between those. And that's another game that gets its character moments like spot on as well.
Oh yeah, it's always character first with this game. Like they've got the big roller coaster storylines, lots of twists and turns and massive scope. Like the stakes are highest as possible, but at the end of the day, it's all about the characters, and like the stakes are like emotional as well as like galaxy threatening. They've always got a mind towards how these characters are getting on together, what it means to them. Like the whole game is basically about people trying to overcome loss and find purpose in new places. It's like the sort of thing like James Gunn handled with Guardians Volume 2. It's that kind of thing, but like they've got a lot more time to work with, so every character's getting something to do. Like they've got their own thing to add to the themes of the story. It's I'm so happy with the writing in this game. It's just it was so good, so full of like humor and heart.
Yeah, it never stops either, does it? Like the Guardians are always like bantering, like. And I think I said to you before as well, like when we were playing this, that if this game had just been a walking simulator and it was just listening to the Guardians like chatting and arguing and just being who they are, I would have been totally fine with that. Like that would have got a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, the interplay is always brilliant when they're walking around talking. Like at one point, I wandered off to find some of the resources, the collectibles, and like I could hear Rocket bad-mouthing me for wandering off. and they just still started having a conversation about me walking away, and it's just like, it was such a good detail. It's like something you wouldn't think of, like when you do it in like an Uncharted game, they just kind of take it as given that you're going to wander off and try and find something. But in this, it makes perfect sense that Rocket would be bothered by that.
Yeah, it worked really well. And like I remember a bit where I had to like go around something and then open a door for the rest of the gang. And when I did open that door, Groot was just standing there and he just smiled and waved at me. And it was just like, just such a nice way to kind of get you into that world, as like it didn't feel like a video game. It was such a living, breathing world. Even though the game is really linear, like it's not open world. You can go around the levels and find the collectibles and that sort of thing. But, you know, it's pretty straightforward. And I love that they just kind of built that with those 5 characters.
Yeah, they focused their time on the characters rather than just building this massive game that like you get lost in. Like a big game like that works for like Spider-Man, and to an extent works for Batman. But I feel like, yeah, a linear story that's focused on character was perfect for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, totally. So when it comes to the actual story of the game, we are, again, no spoilers here, so you haven't got to worry about that. So I don't really want to say too much, like, because obviously there's a lot of twists and turns along the way as the narrative kind of builds and builds and builds. But, you know, we just start out with the Guardians. They kind of set up that they're fairly new, you know, maybe, you know, a few jobs into actually being a gang.
Yeah.
And they're looking for work in their very kind of space piratey, superhero-y kind of way. But what did you think of the story overall?
Yeah, I was really impressed. Like, I felt like they didn't hold anything back. They didn't treat it like they were planning for a sequel. Like they just, anything they could put in the game, they threw at it. So you always had something new happening. You were never getting stuck in like one place and getting kind of seeing the same old faces. Like everything kind of made sense, but like they just had a lot of fun with the potential of this big universe. And it's, yeah, I was just really impressed with all the turns it took. Like,
yeah. Because it feels like an open world game in a way, doesn't it? Because you go to so many places and different planets and worlds that, although the levels are pretty much straightforward with a few kind of, you know, hidden things, but it's got such scope, which I found quite impressive as well.
The scope is like you always feel like you're in a big open space, even though you are very much funneled along a linear path. It did a really good job of creating the sense of space rather than just giving you a massive map to walk around and get annoyed with eventually. Like, this feels like a game Sasha would love.
Yes, I agree. I think she would as well, because like you said, yeah, you can go and investigate your areas, but you know, you're not going to get lost or anything like that.
Yeah, it very much gave all the focus to the story and the character interactions, and throughout the story I felt like somewhere Vin Diesel must be smiling because this is all about family. It's just, it really...
I like to think that every day, whenever I think of Vin Diesel, he's smiling somewhere.
I hope
you know,
so.
like he knows we're thinking of him.
I hope he's happy.
Yeah, sipping on a Corona.
Have a nice barbecue.
Playing D&D.
That just sounds like me. Yeah, it's a really great story, though. And like I said, again, it's character-first writing. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of big emotions going on. Like, I cried a lot. I laughed myself silly constantly. I just loved all of these characters and everything they did. It just felt perfect for Guardians of the Galaxy. Even if you're not even if you haven't been following the comics or anything, but if you've been following the comics, you're going to get a lot out of it because there's a lot of stuff they've put in there. You can tell this was a labour of love. This is people that understood that universe and really liked it. Yeah,
like there's so many Easter eggs and little, well, not even Easter eggs, like it's just little things you'll find and you'll be like, oh, I know that, I get that reference.
Yeah.
And part of the joy of that was like just going around and finding all those. Like sometimes those sort of things can be a chore, right? Like all the shinies and pickups and that sort of thing. But every single bit of like Marvel lore I came across or any sort of hints to other things was, for a big geek like me, was really great.
It feels wrong to even call them Easter eggs. They feel just like they're part of the environment. They not feel like things that have been hidden. They feel natural when you find them. You come across things on them. When I spent like, I think 15 minutes just walking around the Milano at the start, just looking at everyone's rooms, checking out all the details, constantly closing the fridge door because somebody was leaving it open all the time.
Yep. Same. I was really hoping there was going to be a trophy for that.
I feel there might be. I feel like there might be. I didn't close the door enough. I feel like I have to go back and do more.
I checked.
Oh, is there not? That's disappointing.
Because I was really close to getting the platinum on it. I'm only like 10 trophies away. And like I didn't get all, because you can find little pickups that open up dialogue options for the characters when you're on the Milano. And I really wanted to find all those because all those little interactions were fucking brilliant as well. But I think I only got like half or something like that. So I will replay it at some point with a nice walkthrough so I can find all the different things.
Yeah, I'm going to do a new game plus at some point. because I want to try out some of the different choices, because
Yes.
like that's one thing that really stands out with this game. It was the decision-based storytelling, and
and the way that impacts later on as well, because there's like dialogue options, a bit like a Telltale game in a way, that will come back later and affect certain story elements. And in a sort of shooty run and shoot superhero linear game, you wouldn't necessarily expect that. And I think it could have been such a throwaway thing, like such a minor thing as well. Like it really couldn't have, like, you know, it'd just be like, oh, it changes a line of dialogue that you get, but the decision or what happens later is still the same, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like the attention to detail there, that it can change different things that happen in the game, and I love that.
it was nice to feel like your actions had consequences. Like early in the game, I pissed off Rocket, and I kept not taking his side. Obviously, anyone who's seen like the trailer will have seen Drax throwing Rocket over the chasm, so that's not really a spoiler. But I was also frequently not taking his side in arguments, and at some point Rocket got really mad at me and he refused to cooperate with a puzzle. He just became really obstinate in future chapters, and it kind of it built up in this big argument, and they fell out. And I know that was some of that will have been scripted, like as it was supposed to go, but the way it played with my choices, it felt really organic, and it felt really nice. Like it felt like it might be an illusion of choice, but it was a really good trick. It made me feel like I had a say in the things, and like you say, some of your choices did have a big impact on the way the finale plays out. It gave me kind of a Mass Effect 2 kind of feel in that way.
Yeah, it's like Mass Effect but fun, isn't it, this game?
Yeah, definitely.
And I say that as a joke because I love Mass Effect, but there was one point I was like, oh yeah, this is like, it's quite like Mass Effect, but if it was just kind of silly and really, really fun.
Yeah, and also like full of very big sads.
Yes.
I did cry a lot. I'm not going to pretend.
Same.
I don't think I've cried this much at a video game since like 2018. So like Red Dead Redemption 2, Marvel Spider-Man, all that stuff.
Yeah, oh god, that was an interesting year, wasn't it? That was an interesting couple of months when those games kind of came out quite close together. But yeah, and every character kind of has those beats as well.
Yeah.
Like I think all of them, actually, all the main 5 had those things, and it's not just them either. Like all the surrounding characters have lovely moments, and you're just like, oh.
A lot of the characters are just really digging into their like the tragic things that like have left a mark on them, and they're working through them. What's happening in the story kind of brings it out of them naturally, and that it doesn't feel really forced, like they're having to come to these moments. It just makes perfect sense, and
it's organic, isn't it, like you said? And maybe it's an illusion of that kind of, you know, the story playing organically, but that it's exactly how it feels when you're playing the game. And that then goes to the actual story as well. You know, the narrative is driven by seemingly the characters' emotions and decisions, and you know what they decide in the moment. And obviously it's a scripted story and stuff, but yeah, I really felt like it could have gone either way, even though it definitely couldn't have. But just the way the characters were interacting, and like you say, the relationships you've built up with Rocket or anything like that, it felt like it could change at any second.
It really was it was a really good version of like a Telltale format, but it was stapled onto like a really fun game to play, like as an actual game. I had complete trust Eidos-Montréal would pull off the gameplay, but I didn't realise how good it was going to be. All the gameplay systems I expected to be good, but they were still really character focused. It was always coming back to character, which I really liked.
I mean, I think one of the worries I had when we saw the E3 trailer was I was a bit worried the combat would end up a bit like Final Fantasy 15.
Oh yeah,
which I didn't really get in with. Like I didn't enjoy that, and it's part of the reason I never finished that game. Is I didn't like the combat system. I didn't understand the combat system. But it's different because you still control your teammates, and they have their own powers and combos and stuff like that. But I absolutely loved the gameplay in this. You know, you can boil it down to being really simple shooter, because there's no cover system or anything like that. You just run and gun and then call upon the other Guardians to do special attacks and that sort of thing. But I had an absolute blast with it.
Final Fantasy 15 was a good shout there, because it felt very inconsequential. Nothing you were doing felt like it mattered. Any of the stuff you asked your teammates to do didn't feel like nothing coalesced together really. Whereas with this, you could play around with the different abilities of the other Guardians, like create combos with their actions and add your own actions, like using Groot's powers but mixed with Rocket's powers, and then bringing in Drax, and you could really strategize with the way the game played. It was really clever. It did a really good job of putting that leadership mentality on you at all times, like not just when you're in dialogue, when you're actually in action. It was really, really well implemented.
Yeah, and it really plays into like having tactics for each fight as well, depending on the enemies that you're coming up against, and whilst also remaining really fun and like action packed as well. Like the actual combat never really stops once you're in it. It doesn't stop until there's an end. And I saw some criticism of it, in not like wide criticism, but just on the internet, in the comments, where we should never go, really. Except me and you have to sometimes, because that's part of our job. But yeah, some people were saying that, you can only play as Star-Lord. What? I want to play as all the characters. This is going to be rubbish. And I'm like, nah. You wait until you play it, and you'll change your mind on that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It needed to be Star-Lord. Like, it makes sense. I had a feeling when I saw the E3 trailer, what they were trying to do is create that unpredictable element where you're not in complete control, because the Guardians are still quite new, like you said earlier. I think at this point in the story, Gamora's she's only had a couple of jobs of them. So like the team's still farming together, and like there's a lot of responsibility put on Peter's shoulders to try and make them work together, because there's a lot of infighting, which you expect from the Guardians, and you have to try and manage that with the dialogue, and you have to try and bring them together in the combat and the puzzle solving and all these things. And sometimes, like I say, if you piss somebody off, they might not want to help you out. So you have to be very careful about what you're doing. And it was like that with the combat was there, but there's also the traversal. Like, you had to use different Guardians to help you get around, like lifting heavy objects, blowing things up, creating like lifts and stuff. And like, you wouldn't always know which Guardian was going to help, what's going to be the right call for which problem early on. So sometimes you'd make the wrong call and then you'd get like shot down. But as you went along, you started getting more intuitive about how to get across a certain... You'd know which Guardian to go to straight away. So you were kind of growing into the leadership role along with Peter, which I thought was a really clever little touch. It's kind of just pulls you into the story a bit more.
I also liked that towards the end of the game, the Guardians themselves knew that they would be the ones that were needed.
Yes.
And they'd kind of go directly to these, like, not necessarily puzzle ones for the sort of end level, but like just getting you through like doorways and stuff like that. They'd just be on it straight away. And with the way the combat works as well, when you unlock new skills, that it feels like they're just coming together really nicely, and like they're learning about this whole kind of new family dynamic that they've got. And it just reflects in everything, in the story, the dialogue, the combat, the puzzles. It's almost like a perfectly put together game in that way.
I also like with the when they're unlocking the powers, like their ultimate power, that the most powerful attack would only come after they reached like a moment of catharsis in the story. I won't say anything about that, but you probably can kind of expect they were going to get over their problems. But once they do, you get a really special power out of it. So it's a really nice moment. Everything is always tied to the characters and their growth, even in the gameplay.
And those will come individually as well, through individual moments, rather than like the group has learnt the power of friendship and all get their special abilities. You pick them up one by one. Quite different parts of the game as well.
Yeah, they all take different amounts of time to reach their their kind of moment of clarity, or whatever you want to call it, which I really liked. And I feel like we should talk about the huddle thing.
Yes, we have to.
And the music.
The best.
Yeah, I loved it.
So the huddle is like a bar that you fill up, and you get like a special kind of group attack in a way, where you come into a huddle, you have to select the right dialogue options to, fire up your team, and then you kind of get unlimited special abilities for a while.
Yeah.
But Peter Quill will also play a song from his Walkman that is on one of the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is banging. We haven't mentioned the soundtrack yet, but it is amazing. And it's, oh my god, I loved, like, every time I got that, I wouldn't think about it tactically. I was just like, yep, on it straight away. Even if there was just one like little minion left, it was like, I'm going to destroy you now.
Oh yeah, that
Astley plays.
It'd be a really good song, and I'd only have one guy to kill.
Yes.
Fuck. It's like I really liked whenever like Wham would come on. I'd be like, yeah. I'd get really into Wham, and then like it'd be over, and I'm like, I wanted the whole song. It's like,
that Rick Astley, the final countdown I had, and I just wanted them throughout the entire game. Actually, I wish there was like a jukebox mode, which you could just play them as you was running around the game.
Yeah. I did like that they used it in the combat, because it did kind of amp you up a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used my huddle on the final boss. Again, we're not going to say anything about who or what that is and what happens, but I had a huddle for that, and that's how I finished the game, was with a huddle.
Nice.
As I can't remember what song was playing actually, but it was amazing, and I think it was Hot Chocolate.
Oh, nice.
Which was a really interesting one, but it just works so well.
Yeah, like the soundtrack, it's not got like any deep cuts like James Gunn's movies, but they're all like absolute bangers, like proper like pop classics.
Yeah, they'll be stuck in your head for days afterwards.
Yeah, I can imagine like the PC version might create a mod for that where you can put your own music in. That might be quite fun.
Well, it looks like I'll be buying the game again.
I just kept thinking that I'd really like to hear like Tenacious D or something over a fight like with karate, I'll kick your ass or something like that.
I'd quite like a bit of Mariah Carey for Christmas.
Yes.
Like, it's on Christmas Day you can play the game, which is
it's Mariah season now, so.
Oh yeah, she's out of her cave. She's been unleashed upon the world. She's here. So why not put her in the game? I was going to ask, did you have any glitches or bugs?
I did have some glitches, but they were mostly just like visual glitches, like a character like walking too far to the side of an elevator and disappearing.
Okay.
And there was one glitch when I was trying to get an outfit, and I kept like trying to walk off the move off a ledge and head towards the thing, but it kept turning me around and sending me back.
Okay.
It's a known glitch, and I had to walk in a very specific direction to break the glitch. So I managed to get the suit and my resources, but I spent about 5 minutes angrily trying to move myself off this ledge. But it was stuff like I expect like glitches on AAA games at this point. Like there was nothing game breaking, nothing that ruined my fun.
No, in some ways I had one that enhanced it a bit because I was on the Milano and I went to talk to Drax and he had his arms folded in his chest, but he had his blades in his hand, so he was actually like stabbing himself in the chest. So that was fun. It felt like a very Drax thing, to be honest.
Just try to give himself a tattoo or something.
Yeah. I had a few audio glitches where characters would be having a conversation, but one of the characters, you can hear their part of it, which was my most frustrating one, because I was like, no, I want to hear the dialogue, obviously. And then, a couple of little ones as well, so a bit of clipping for certain things. I got stuck in a wall at one point, had to reload a checkpoint, and then at one point I ended up on a platform in like a middle of these other platforms. So I was like, oh, maybe there's a shiny there, but there wasn't. And then I couldn't get back across because it was slightly lower than the one I jumped down from.
Oh.
And I wasn't sure if I tried for ages and just like, am I doing this wrong? But I wasn't sure if that was a mistake or not. But it was just a simple matter of loading the checkpoint. Like, the checkpoints in the save games are really generous in this.
Yeah.
So that wasn't an issue at all. So yeah, like you say, nothing game breaking. It's not like a Cyberpunk kind of deal. But just little niggles, which I'm sure they will patch out very soon.
I feel like they're really easy to fix. Like most of my favorite games have glitches. Red Dead Redemption 2 is full of them. Skyrim is just glitch. It's a glitch with like functional bits stuck inside it by accident. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a glitch with a horse walking up a mountain simulator involved.
It's the stuff like that never bothers me. I liked Cyberpunk when I played it on. But I played it on a very good PC, so I'm not gonna pretend I had a bad experience like some people. But I just don't. If a glitch happens, I just let it roll off my back unless it's like completely bars my progress. Nothing like that.
I've been playing WWE games for like 10 years. Like, I know all about the glitches.
Christ, yeah.
All right then. Well, I mean, we've kind of settled on a score system now, right? For the reviews, we're going for out of 10. Bit bold, bit brave, I know.
Yeah, I feel like that gives us a lot of room to work with.
Okay, so what would you give Guardians of the Galaxy out of 10?
I'm thinking I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Because of some of the glitches, but not game breaking. I mean, it's not doing anything new, but it's doing it very well. It's not like Deathloop is like a perfectly engineered gaming experience. That's why I would have given that a 10. But despite that, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is my favourite game this year.
Ooh, okay, cool.
I think it's my game of the year because I'm very emotionally driven as a gamer. It's like Red Dead Redemption 2, Death Stranding, stuff like that. They're all my favourite games. I need like an emotional bond to my game, even if it's not perfect. Or if it's like too short or whatever, anything. It could have as many problems as it likes as long as I've got an emotional attachment.
I'm exactly the same as you. I have that with games, and I think that's why I haven't got on with Control, is I find the protagonist is quite boring and dull, and I have no kind of emotional interest in what she's doing and her story. But yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of covered that with the podcast anyways. Like, any sort of games we end up loving are the ones where we are emotionally connected to the story, the characters, just all that sort of thing. Anything that makes us cry, I think gets a thumbs up from us.
We've got to have some feelings there. It's not just like mechanical nonsense. We've got to feel something.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we don't play Fortnite.
Yeah.
I would go 8 out of 10. I think just being slightly less generous, which I think, I don't know, in some ways feels kind of harsh considering the way we've spoken about it. But like, I think it is a really great, really, really fun game. A couple of glitches, but haven't really affected the score too much. I don't think it does anything particularly new. Like, you know, you can just hold down the trigger button as Peter Quill. But yeah, I still loved it. It's been my favourite game that I've played for a long time, really. So I guess that makes it an average of 8.5 out of 10 from the 1UP pod.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Put that on your poster.
I'd honestly say it's like, for me, it's up there with the Arkham, the best of the Arkham games and Marvel Spider-Man as far as superhero games go. Like, I haven't enjoyed a AAA game this much since, again, 2018. That was a stellar year for gaming, but this is this is like the most I've enjoyed playing a game since then. So
I think I'd probably put Last of Us 2 in there as the last kind of great AAA that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, enjoyed the hard word.
That was harrowing. Yeah. Fuck me. We need to. We might cover those games at one point.
We'll get there eventually.
Jesus Christ, yeah. When we make Sasha and Becky play them.
Yeah.
Well, Sasha's played the first one actually, and Becky was there on stream for that. So maybe just a second, and then we can all cry together.
I feel like this is a game maybe they'd want to cover in an episode as well, because I feel like I might want to talk more about it and get into the spoilers for Guardians of the Galaxy. And I do think this is a game Becky and Sasha would really like.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what they think as well.
Yeah, it would be fun to like cover this more in detail, because there's a lot we can't talk about right now, and there's a lot I want to talk about. It's really hard not to spoil anything. Fuck.
When I was playing it and I knew we were going to do the review, there were so many like moments I wanted to write down, like I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, but they're all really specific and like character plot points and stuff, and
big emotional beats that you can't say because you're going to ruin it. All you can say with any certainty is you'll cry and you'll laugh, and if that's a spoiler to you, you've got problems.
And if you don't enjoy this game, then I think you might have problems as well, to be perfectly honest.
Very much so.
Because it's really fun. It's a great story. If you are a Marvel fan, or you're a fan of the Arkham games, Spider-Man games, like this is definitely a game for you.
Yeah, it's not Marvel's Avengers. This game's made me forgive Square Enix for Marvel's Avengers.
Oh my god, it's finally happened. Oh,
there's another thing I wanted to mention briefly. Like I wanted to ask you. The guy who played Star-Lord, what's his name again? Hold on. John McLaren. Did you get a feeling that he sounded a bit like Chris Jericho? Like a young Chris Jericho? Because he was a Canadian actor, and like once I started hearing Chris Jericho at certain points in his voice.
Do you know what's weird? Is I didn't get it through the voice, but the hair.
Yes.
I got it from the hair. Yeah, I definitely had that. That's so weird.
It was just, I just couldn't shake that. Like every now and then he'd say something, it sounds so much like Chris Jericho on his podcast.
Oh god, he's going to do a fucking ad read for like Squarespace or something, isn't he? In the sequel. Jesus Christ.
It made sense, because I felt like Chris Jericho seemed like the kind of guy who would become Star-Lord if he got taken to space rather than like WCW. So it just made sense to me. It made me enjoy the game just maybe a little bit more, just for that little addition. It's like,
yeah. See, now I'm just imagining the Guardians as the inner circle for any AEW fans.
Yeah, Drax would be Jake Hager.
Hager? Yeah. Sammy Guevara's Rocket? I don't know if that works.
No, I think Proud and Powerful would be Rocket combined, and Sammy would be Groot.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, okay, cool. We've solved that one. Excellent.
There we go. Good final thought there.
Well, if anyone out there in the audience land, we haven't come up with a name for our One Up Pod universe yet, have we? We're not going to call it that. Podders, yeah, I like that. One up podders? One podders?
Podlings. One up podlings.
If any of our darling podlings have any opinions on Guardians of the Galaxy, please do come and get in touch. We are at One Up Pod on Twitter and Instagram. That's 1UPPOD. God, I hate that.
You didn't say it right.
Andy, where could... one UPPOD.
1UPP odd.
Oh, fuck's sake, yeah. See, I don't like it. Where can they find you on Twitter, Andy?
I am at truly_defective on Twitter.
And if you want to come and yell at me about that Mass Effect line, I am at the Chip Thompson. If you want to come and help support the podcast, you can do so in some very, very easy ways. You can subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice. You can leave us a rating and review if your platform allows that. That's especially helpful because, you know, the more kind of reviews and ratings we get, the higher up the charts we go, the more people that can get eyes on us, and then, you know, the more content we can bring you as soon as possible. And yeah, just come and interact with us on social media as well. Come say hello, give us all your thoughts on the video games. We're always tweeting and talking every single day on the accounts, and we would love to see you there. So we'll see you real soon for a brand spanking new episode, Final Fantasy XIV. And until that time, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Oh, damn it! No, see, last time we ruined this, didn't we? I was trying to set you up for it again. God
No,
damn it.
I was ready. Oh, I said it wrong, didn't I? Shit.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Fucking hell.
And most importantly of all, don't forget to get a life and play video games.